Some days, like you said, what the hell am I doing? But then there's other days where I'm like through the roof, you know? And then there's other days where I just sit and I'm quiet. But in my heart and in my gut and in my like woman intuition, I know that I'm going the right way, even though it looks crazy from the outside. But I'm like, no, it's getting me somewhere that is just there.
Welcome to what will be an epic hour, sharing the voices and the opinions, the insights, and the wisdom of these four fabulous women by my side, as we discover what it really means to be alive through a series of our own personal stories, sharing our triumphs and tribulations. I'd love each of us to introduce who you are and why you felt it was important to show up today.
I'm Carlie, and I felt like it was important to show up because, well, A, Charles asked me, and I think anything connected to Charles is going to be amazing. And B, I love doing stuff with women, and especially I feel so inspired, especially when I'm having a hard time in my life, being around amazing women, and I knew that that's what this was going to be, so I had to be here.
I just think it's so important to connect with other people on this path. I think a lot of times in the health and wellness path, wherever that may lead us, it can be so insular and so one-sided, and I think the path of liberation is truly a collective one. So to be asked to come and sit with other amazing women who are also on this path, like that's a no-brainer. You show up for that.
Thanks for showing up.
I'm just so excited to be here. You know, I've been on this path now for a year, and you know, it's filled with so many adventure. And what I've started to realize from that is the power of, you know, like-minded kindred souls, you know, coming together to really talk about this, so that we can start to activate, you know, within one another, you know, the potential of this world, and that can't come by, you know, sitting alone. And so I want to sit with people like you guys to talk about and dream our world into being. So that's why I'm here.
I'm Felicia, and I showed up today because I wanted to show my power. I wanted to use my voice, and being in spaces again with other strong women that are doing the same thing, I feel like it's very magical, and I'm excited to see people that we can heal. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be in open conversation with people, women that get it, that are vibrating at a way higher level, you know, so.
Beautiful.
I'm ready.
I'm so thrilled to share space and time with each of you, and something that has been coming up for me is the courage it takes to let go of the life path that you've been following in order to make space for something new. So what have you lost in order to gain something greater?
This is gonna get real deep real quick.
That's my style.
Perfect. Me too. This is great. I realized that my life was on the line, and I felt like it was either I keep operating from a human perspective, or I start operating from my spiritual perspective. And I knew that if I kept doing what my flesh wanted to do, that I was going to end up dying. Like I was going to lose everything on a whole nother level if I didn't start operating from my highest self, like continuously, you know? But I think that that's what was at the core of it, and it forced me to have courage and forced me to move past the fear of what if, and yeah, it's just, and I think it's a day-by-day thing. There's some days where I feel like so weak. Some days, like you said, what the hell am I doing? But then there's other days where I'm like through the roof, you know? And then there's other days where I just sit and I'm quiet. But in my heart and in my gut and in my like woman intuition, I know that I'm going the right way, even though it looks crazy from the outside. But I'm like, no, it's getting me somewhere that is just there. I don't know what it's called. you know?
Yeah, and I think that's the courage to leap into the unknown. It's having that faith that whatever's on the other side of everything I'm comfortable with, of every life that I've already experienced, it's worth the not knowing to experience more meaning, more joy, more fulfillment. And Tiffany, this is something that you're really leaning into deeply.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, the biggest thing I've had to let go this year is my mind. You know, is understanding that the mind just creates all this stuff, right? Like when I say I let go of my mind, I'm saying like I let go of expectations of how things should be, how people should behave, you know, what I think all these things are, whatever outcomes, you know, letting go of attachments to things, to people, to, you know, and really just accepting like everything that is showing up right now is perfect, and there are no labels, right? That there are no good, bad, like beautiful, ugly, right, wrong. You know, that these are the labels we place on things, and that creates that, you know, that separation, right? So like letting go was really tough because, you know, we all want something. I knew that I wanted, you know, that awesome job. I wanted to be a multi-millionaire, all of these things. And I realized, you know, the distance between like expectation and how things are is suffering. And I'm constantly in that state of suffering. So I said, fuck it. Oh, sorry. Keep it real.
Express yourself. It's just a word, right?
Just a word. So I said, forget it, you know. You know, I don't want that anymore. Like, I just want things as is. Like, none of that. So that was really hard because I found myself, like, whatever it was, like, my mind wanted to just, like, you know, think about what it can be. You know, I think that's like a type A women thing. I don't know.
Thanks for sharing. How about for you? I know that you also kind of switched paths from the known to the unknown.
Yeah, I feel like my life has been a series of that. Like first thinking I was going to be a professional dancer. Well, I was a professional dancer, and then realizing that actually wasn't my path. And having to really let go of that was like a big breakup for me because I was doing it for I danced for like 25 years. It was a long journey. It was like what I always thought I was going to do. So then to find out that that's actually not aligned with your soul, it's a whole thing. So I did that, and then I also got into hair, and then I had to let go of that to step into teaching yoga, and now I'm having to let go of taking opportunities or being in spaces that aren't aligned with moving more into like social justice within the yoga and wellness spaces. So I feel like I keep thinking there's like an end path, but what I'm learning is that this is just a continuous process, and it's I think there's a lot of social conditioning as well, especially me being from Oklahoma. It's just you go to college, you get the job, you stay in the job, you do one thing for the rest of your life, you work a 9 to 5. So it's also been like my parents always tell me, we didn't know how to prepare you for this life. Like we have, you know, no idea what you're doing. We don't know. We support you. We want you to be happy, but we can't really give you any advice because this is not our journey, you know? So it's also been me just having to learn it all for myself. So I really feel like I'm finally in a space, and this is very recent, where I understand what it means to let go of control and let something bigger take the control, and it feels so relieving. Like I can take a deep breath for the first time in my life. So I just think that's really important on this journey.
That's surrendering, huh?
Surrendering,
letting go. That's the hard part.
And the trusting.
Yeah.
Because like we've been talking about from the outside world, we look crazy a lot of the time, you know? But there's something in us that's telling us to just follow whatever is whispered to you in that moment, and all will be revealed. So
I once heard that someone said trusting is like holding the space for magic to occur without your intervention. And like you just reminded me of that, like how important it is to kind of just let go of our likes and just say, okay, magic, go ahead.
That's why we say leave a little bit of room for God to move. Like, you know,
I
it's
love
like we
that.
try to take it up, and I'm like, but how is he supposed to do anything?
Yeah.
We're not allowing him.
I think that's also true whenever we that's where like I feel like the manifestation whole thing gets really tricky, because you're trying to manifest one thing and you think and you make the vision board and you know this whole thing we've been taught to do, but then there's no room for it to move. Like how do our minds know that that's for our highest good? And when we think of just one thing having to be as it is in our minds, we really do hold ourselves back from what's truly possible, which is for the highest good of yourself, but also everybody that you're serving.
Can I propose something that is like, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this, like to challenge like a bit of the view. There's a lot of people talk about like wanting to manifest, like we need to manifest as if it's something that we need to create. But like, what if we already are that?
I think so. I agree with that.
Right? And like, what if we already are manifested? And it's just like removing those layers so that we can actually be that very thing versus something we search outside of ourselves, like to create, like, I don't know. I just keep thinking like there's this treasure inside, you know, and we just like metal to gold, like we just need to like burn away all this other stuff that like really is, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's the storytelling of self.
Yeah.
And I think what we're manifesting is based on the conditioning of our families, of our cultures, of our societies. And really I think of it like Russian nesting dolls. The work of our lifetime is opening up each of these nesting dolls and seeing, this is the story I was raised to believe is true, but is this really my truth? Is this something that I want to continue perpetuating? Is success only being a multimillionaire? Is making mom and dad happy, keeping the 9 to 5? Is, you know, for me, when I left my advertising career and I went backpacking for 28 months, my mom straight up thought I was crazy. Like she immigrated to America to give her daughters all this opportunity, and here I was squandering it. And it's having that faith, that courage, conviction of self to know that, yes, this is risky, but if I don't take this risk, I know what my life is going to look like. And that's not a life that feels exciting for me. Carlie, I know that you have been through a lot of exciting changes and iterations, so what have you let go of in order to make space for the new Carlie?
Everything. Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like hearing you guys talk about it, I feel like I'm right in the middle of it, you know, in that moment where you're like, like you're just kind of falling, but you're like, whatever. But I think like the biggest thing, like how you were saying, like something in me just knew, like, it's like, I just knew like I needed a different result. So even if I get the craziest, worst result out of this, at least it's fucking different than what the last 10 years have been. So that's where it was like, I know that I can take that risk. And also I felt like something in me was like, you gotta just do this. And similarly, like, you know, some days I'm like, oh my God, like, yes, this is great. And like 2 days ago, I'm like crying in my bathtub into like a wheel of cheese and drinking a bottle of wine to myself. So it's like, you just, you know, every day is a new adventure. But it's deep down, I feel like very good about this adventure, even though it's been really challenging. I'm like, yes. And every time I start like freaking out, I'm like, you're growing. This is exciting. Like, it's fine. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting that we're all kind of going through that and have gone through it. And hearing you guys gives me like hope, because I feel like it's like, you know, I'm like a little fresher in it. And I'm like, okay, you guys are amazing. It's gonna be fine. So it's good.
Yeah, and that brings me to something that I really honed in on this summer. I moved to Berlin and I just created this incubator for myself to hear myself, to create stillness. And I read an incredible book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and she talks about fixed mindset and growth mindset. And we all want to be growth mindset, but the truth is, because of our upbringing, cultural upbringing, how tough we are, especially as women, we tend to be perfectionist. When things get hard, when failure seems imminent, we feel like the failure. And what I've learned is that failure and success are two wingtips of the same bird. And when you put equal value on both, you soar. So I'm curious, what was the last thing you failed at that actually was a breakthrough? When was the last time you sucked at something that revealed something inside of you? Because I think all women could benefit from failing more often, because when we fail fast and we fail often, we get to prototype, and men do that really, really well. And women, Jeff Bezos said, when you have 70% of the information, go. And
I was like, I wait till I have like 98.
Right.
Because I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to, disrespect myself. But really, I feel like by not failing, by not putting ourselves out there, we're disrespecting the creative process of being human. And so I think it would be really valuable for us to share our failures as a point of strength.
I think oh, it's so interesting because I don't identify them as failures, but I understand what you're asking. So I feel like my relationship with my children's father, it's like a growing moment, but it helped me to realize I needed to go back and heal my relationships as a younger child. So yeah, probably say my relationship kind of made me observe all my relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I feel like, and I don't know, to me it feels like it's even more as a woman, but the idea of this failing relationship, like getting a divorce, I feel so much shame over. Like I look at everyone that's not getting divorced and I'm like, they did it. I just need so much more. Like I'm just such a bitch and I just want more. And like their lives aren't perfect and they're writing it out. And it's like this intense shame, like how dare I? And I even feel it from people in couples who are kind of like, well, our life's not perfect. Like, what are you doing? And you're like, I don't know. Like, but I think men, it's like, oh yeah, like go get it, like figure it. There's just not that same pressure. There's pressure on them, but it's not the same. I don't think anyone's saying that to my ex, whatever. He's like my best friend. He's amazing, but he's not getting the same shit that I feel like I'm getting from people.
Yeah.
I think I'm failing at perhaps what isn't sort of mine, but that I've worn for so long from society, which is like not being in a relationship. I have so many people who wonder, oh gosh, you're already in your late 30s, what, you're still single? Like, as if there's something wrong with me, And, and even, I've been on a whirlwind of a life, and I met somebody most recently, and I thought that they were like, my twin flame, my life, this was it. And then I realized that it didn't turn out that way, that for me, as beautiful as a person that he was, he really couldn't fill my cup. And so then, a failure because I'm thinking, God, what's wrong with me? Like, that's what you're supposed to do in a relationship. You're supposed to be there for that person as a crush no matter what. But then something inside felt wrong, no, I want to meet my equal. I want someone who can fill my cup and vice versa. Like two strong oak trees together. And so I let it go. So I feel like to some certain extent, I don't know if it's a success or a failure because on one hand, I'm happy, but does that mean I'm being narcissistic? But I'm failing from society because I know people would look at me and be like, well, she's successful, right? She's an ex-corporate executive. She's a startup founder exit, she does well for herself. Like, what's wrong with her? So that's sort of like where I feel is my failure. But what if I don't want it? Unless it's right, it's my choice.
Yeah, or
Absolutely.
If you get married and then you get divorced, you're like, what? Why did I even get? I mean, there's no matter how you do it, you're like, I fucked up. I just I suck.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that brings up an interesting point. Who are we a failure to?
Right.
To the outside world, to our parents, or to ourselves?
Yes.
And I think the only thing that matters is the self.
Yeah.
So I guess in that, I don't feel like I failed myself. I feel really proud of it. It was really hard to let go of someone who you love because you love them unconditionally and you just want them to fly on their own, But then, I'm a failure in the society standards because I'm 38, I'm single, and I'm not married.
So interesting.
And I have no kids, right? I have a dog. It's I'm gonna die the old dog lady or whatever, right? Right?
I started journaling, doing these graphs of what makes me happy and what am I identifying with that society or my parents taught me, and what do I believe in. And I noticed there were so many times that I never I didn't respect myself enough to even ask myself certain questions, and I kind of had moments where I would just like cry, and I'm like, oh my God, I never asked you like how you feel about that, or what does success look like to you, like, you know. So just knowing the difference between the society, parents, and you, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes a huge difference.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, and that brings me to my next question is, how do you know when you're thriving? When was the last time where you were like, wow, I feel aliver than alive? Like every cell of my being is excited, is proud, is growing.
Oh, I've got a good one.
Yeah.
So I just realized that like thriving for me means like that you can make like meaningful value and, you know, lasting beauty with no matter what like life hands us. I was talking to a friend this weekend and we were reflecting sort of the highlights, the lowlights, and I said I didn't really have any because, you know, what ended up happening was earlier, so I experienced ayahuasca for the first time earlier this year, and unbeknownst to me then, you're not supposed to make any big life decisions like within the first month.
After taking it?
Yes. Including like investing a 6-figure like property down in Costa Rica in a land that you have never ever seen before because you trust that person. I still do. I think it's just, you know, we come back out and things happen. And, you know, at that moment, like, I would have been beating myself down and whatever, but at that moment, like, I felt like I was what is thriving. I understood what that investment taught me as a lesson. And so I just started to think, I'm like, okay, so this is what thriving means. Like, this is the other layer higher than fulfillment, because it's like we're a magician, you know, we get to turn like ordinary circumstances into like magic and wonder, you know, and we can like be a surfer and just like ride through every wave, recognizing that yes, it might pummel us, otherwise it can take us like to the next level, you know, and just really like, you know, squeezing the lemonade out of the lemon, you know. So I feel really connected to that based on the recent, you know, stupidity that I had. Yeah.
Thanks for
By the way, don't do anything after I just wait.
Good to know. I feel like lately for me, thriving it's a feeling. It has, I don't know, I right now feel like I'm thriving, but if somebody looked at my life from the outside, they'd be like, whoa girl, you're not thriving, you know? But feel like just feeling really good, and then moving towards things that continue that feeling, you know. And so for me right now, I'm doing like an hour to 3 hour deep inner yogic practices every day, and just really cultivating that inner feeling of thriving, and then just trusting that the more I'm in that feeling, the more things can open up to me that will continue to bring that feeling to my life. So thriving for me, to step into thriving, I actually had to take a step back and focus on the feeling of what thriving means to me, to then just sit back and trust that all is coming.
Everything is working. Everything is coming. Yeah, I agree. I feel like I totally feel like that. This is really interesting because I feel like thriving to me right now, well, first of all, I had an amazing Reiki session last night that definitely made me feel like I was connected and thriving. I was my higher self, there she is. But thriving to me right now is literally as simple as being able to just relax on the couch when I have nothing to do, instead of trying to create and fill up space. And so allowing myself to hold space for myself. So literally like sitting on the couch in the middle of the day and just relaxing with my 10-month-old is me thriving, you know, and me surrendering that everything is gonna work out. And because I wanna just relax on the couch with my son and not create something, is okay. So
And so hard to do.
yeah, it's so hard. But I feel like I'm thriving because I'm able to face it and be okay in those moments, you know? So
And I think when you say okay, I almost feel like the word you're also saying is like, I'm accepting. Like, it's okay, I'm accepting of me, I'm accepting the situation. Like, there's nothing more than exactly this perfection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that.
I think like I'm realizing as you guys are saying this that what I thought was thriving up until maybe a month ago, it has now changed because I don't have that anymore. But also, not that it, I mean, I don't know. But for me, it was so career oriented, and like, if I'm headlining the show, if I'm doing this thing, if I'm on tour, then I'm thriving. If I'm sitting on the couch in the middle of the day because my fucking endometriosis hurts and I'm in pain, I am like a giant loser. So, but I think really thriving is being able to sit on the couch and love yourself unconditionally and be like, it's okay that I'm not working. I'm self-care. I'm so bad at self-care. And right now I kind of have no choice. And so I think now that feeling of like taking care of myself has become my version of thriving.
Yeah, that's huge. For me, thriving is really the intersection of self-belief, self-expression, and service. So when I believe in myself more than anybody else does, when I express myself artistically, visually, stories, words, then I can be in service to something that is greater than myself. And then I feel like my cup is spilling over, and I'm able to impact other people with my journey, which I think is the human story, right? We're not meant to be living in silos.
Can I go back quickly to failure? Because I feel like I just have some stuff to share I feel like would be helpful for other people. So my entire journey out here in Los Angeles, I feel like has been a giant failure. Like it is like one failure after the next. But what I would love to share is that after I realized that dance was no longer for me and I was stepping away, then I had this identity crisis. And there's so many things that I'm passionate about and I feel like I'm really great at. So I started to pursue all those things, and I tried and I failed so many things. And I feel like so much of the time we stop ourselves in those the moments of divine inspiration and try to make it perfect or whatever, but sometimes it's just good just to act on something, try it, and then see what happens. I mean, I had a clothing line, I had earrings, I did creative direction for music videos, and it all was very fast. I started, but I'm so happy that I did all of that because I know that it wasn't for me, but I tried it, you know? So I just feel like the message of letting go of what society tells you that you need to have it all figured out before you act, or that it's not okay to try a million different things, I think is a bunch of bullshit. So, and for women as well, I think there's this need to have to constantly prove ourselves, especially in career, you know, and it's just that process of letting go of that need to prove ourselves and just let ourselves try and fail. We're on this earth to play. That's what we're here for. And so I feel like so much of the time we really deprive ourselves of the full experience by letting, it's just conditioning is all it is.
What a disservice to the spirit to contain it, you know? Because it's oh, I'm afraid to try this. It's that's your spirit trying to express itself.
I
Interesting.
almost got love that, because essentially what I'm hearing you saying is, you know, failure is your feedback. You know, and that divine guidance is really shown through curiosity. You know, like a child, as you kind of explore, it's the breadcrumbs leading you to where you are now, right? Gleaming and glowing.
And when you tell that story, I'm like, you're amazing. Nothing in me is you failed at this thing. I'm like, wow. You did all of it? Am I doing enough? It's the opposite.
I mean, I had so much shame about it for a long time. I was I'm just crazy and lost. For a long time, even after it was all finished and I found my path, I would just talk about myself in a really shameful tone. And I had to reframe it. And I think, I don't know where that came from, but it was definitely a deep, something going on deep within me that I had to just be what? Why is that shameful? Why do you think that? And but I think that can resonate with a lot of people.
Thank you for sharing that, and it's so true. It's the way we talk to ourselves that determines the way we talk to the world. And it's a mindset shift. So I'm curious, what is a story that you believe to be true, and then you recently had a shift in the way that you saw yourself and you saw that story?
That I wasn't allowed to use my voice. And I know exactly where that came from. I remember the moment, I can see it, I can feel it, I can everything. Because when I was younger, I always wanted to be a singer. was probably like 7 or 8, and my mom was a single parent of us 3 kids. So like, you know, her patience was not there all the time. I understand her now, but as a kid, as a little girl, I didn't understand that. I was translating things myself, you know? And I believed the lie that I told myself, that my voice wasn't important, that my perspective wasn't important. And it's actually up until recently, I started to use my voice more, and I noticed it made people uncomfortable, but I had to push past it, because when I made when I made it uncomfortable for my mom, I muted it. But my voice creates so much change, and it saves people. So to ever think that my voice wasn't important and that I translated it like that just like made me so sad inside, you know? So, yeah.
That's bad. Wow.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I think I've had the exact same thing recently. I realized I don't really talk about how I feel. I think with my family, I'm so different from my family, so when I go home, I'm just like silent, you know? To avoid confrontation. Like I really, and I was even doing that out here, like I'm not really like just letting people say things and me just not, I wouldn't interject or say how I feel about that. And so now it's a process of knowing that my truth is valuable and that I have a truth that my truth needs to be shared, and that, you know, whenever you really speak how you truly feel, I feel like you can get a lot of pushback, you know, so it's scary. So I'm just trying to step into it like one little baby step at a time, just for myself and for others, to be like, all of a sudden be like, this is how I really feel. People be like, whoa. But I've been holding so much inside for a long time. So like, and you know, all of this correlates with the movement into social justice and the yoga and wellness world. Like the way I've been feeling about it for a long time, I've kept silent, and it's been like boiling inside of me for about 5 years now. So it's, using your voice, whoo, it's needed.
To use your voice.
But it's almost like we have to remind ourselves that our truth as individuals, like there's 5 truths at this table, and that doesn't discredit yours, or yours. Like this is my life experience, and that's okay. But for some reason, I would question myself, like, oh, it's not okay. My truth is not as powerful, and it's like, no, I have to say it, but fuck that. Like, this is my shit. I went through this. Like, this is what's gonna help, you know. So, but it's, you know, sometimes I feel like a lot of people, specifically men, from my experience, have like this ego that makes you feel like your truth doesn't matter, you know? And I'm like, no, but it does. And when I talk to other women, they let me know that it does too. So it's actually you.
I feel like too, when you share your truth, you validate so many other people. Like this class that I host for the LGBTQ community, a part of the class is a discussion. And I think that's where a lot of them have found the most healing or acceptance of themselves, is from hearing everybody else's experiences, because it's a really vulnerable space for them, and we create like a really safe container. But a lot of them have expressed to me, it's just knowing that I'm not alone has softened what I'm experiencing like tenfold, you know? So there's that as well.
This today literally has like changed my life. Like, I'm like, it's amazing. Where have I been? Oh my God.
I know, I'm like, can I live in this world? We talk about this all the time.
Yes, you can, we can. Yes, that's what we're creating.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. No, for me it was more, it's a lot to do with culture that actually just happened this weekend. So I grew up, you know, as, I'm from Taiwan, and moved here to the States when I was 14. And so, like, you know, being in a traditional Chinese family, you know, like, you never talk about yourself, ever, you know, like, and then you add that on top of, you know, I mean, they're incredible, but I have to say, they're incredible parents who also told me, like, you need to shrink yourself down, like, so little, like a grain of sand, you know, because that's what Buddha taught. And so all of that, you know, coming into this culture, I learned, like, that's not the right thing to do. If you talk about yourself, you're narcissistic, you're self-absorbed, it's all these negativity, right? So I've put this label there. And so all my life, all my career, you know, I've always been like in the backstage, right? Like even when I was a, you know, executive, it was all about being a servant leader. And I really do believe that. but it didn't really allow me to fully lean into and really step into the light. So I had to really rewrite this story because my life has changed, and I've been, doing a lot of writing, and and when my friend encouraged me to share it, I really didn't want to share it. I can't take a selfie. My best friend laughs at me all the time. She's like, what is wrong with you? It's a freaking photo. Get over yourself. But it's not so much of that. So yeah, so I'm now thinking, the impact of having just the social, the cultural, conditioning, as a program that sort of just runs, that rule my life that I didn't even know about. And so now, I'm I just made a decision. I'm like, okay, I will use social media for good.
I had a comedy partner for a very, very long time, and we always did our entire career together. So when we broke up, was like, before we broke up, I can't ever do this alone. There's no way I could do this on my own. We are a thing, we are a duo, we've been doing this forever. And then we just happened to break up, it just happened, and it was okay, now I have to do this on my own. And now I'm growing so much. Of course I can do it on my own. I'm doing so many new projects, and I think her on her own would thrive so much more, is hopefully thriving so much more. It's but we felt so codependent, and I felt I could never, we would always say that, I could never go on stage by myself. I could never do this on my own. And now I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's forcing you into your space.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Literally, our words make our world.
Yeah.
Right? The stuff we tell ourselves. Yeah. It's so terrible. It's it's such junk. Right?
I would love to know if I can ask a question.
Yeah,
okay, if you guys, you were saying about how you used to be really mean to yourself, I think you were saying, or whatever, and you've gotten better. I have such a hard time with that. If you guys have tips, I'm sure people would love to hear how to be nicer to themselves. I don't know.
I have something that is really cheesy, but I swear by
Probably
it.
works, girl. I'm over here crying from looking at her left eye. I'm do it.
So I keep a dry erase marker by my toothbrush, and every night before I fall asleep, I write a little love note to myself. And a question: how can I be in service to joy, impact, and prosperity to myself and the world at large today? And then I leave a little love note, and the next morning when I wake up and I brush my teeth, I'm like, oh, I love me. And it's such a powerful moment, because what I've recognized is the internal communication. Getting in touch with your inner elder on one shoulder, the 88-year-old version of you, and your inner child, the 8-year-old version of you, and allowing them to play in the living room of my heart is really all that guides me now. Because I've recognized that it is deeply disempowering to allow all of those stories of my culture, even my family, my mom's wishes and desires for me are not my own. And if I have a daughter and she desires something differently, that's when I know I'll have made it, because she is brave enough to pave her own path. And so that physical act of writing a love letter every night and receiving it every morning helps me recognize that I'm my highest authority, that my experience is my highest authority, that I don't need a master's in gender studies, I don't need to be a psychotherapist. I believe that all of life boils down to observation and desire. So we are driven by our desires, but we can only recognize that if we're in a space to really observe ourselves. And I think what's happening that we're just starting to notice is our brains are getting hijacked by our phones. So that observation, we got to actually cultivate space for it. Ryan Holiday just wrote that book, Stillness. A lot of us are starting to put down the phones. We're going into monasteries. I'm going into a Vipassana, because what happens when we just allow ourselves to sit in the discomfort of our own silence? That's when we get real clarity.
That's been my major work, is sitting in discomfort. Also, I will say journaling has helped me a lot, putting my thoughts and beliefs about how I feel about myself for things on paper, to just physically see it. I'm reading this book right now called, it'll come to me later. But it has to do with money, but it's bigger than that. It's reframing your whole mindset about the now, how you are in this moment, where you are in this moment, and how do you become okay with this moment, instead of always trying to strive for more. And when you're more in that space, those things will happen, but then you don't really need those things to happen because you're happy with this moment. But one of the I'll find it. I don't know why it's not coming to me. But he had, like, there's exercises at the end of every chapter, and he had you write down all these beliefs you hold about money. And I wrote it down, and it was like 20, 25 beliefs, and they were all horrendous. And I didn't know that I felt that way. And I was like, well, shit, of course I'm having money problems. Like, if that's how I really feel about money. And it, like, that to me was almost instantaneously healing, because just to see it, I was like, oh, well, there goes that. That's not, it like helped it just to come out, you know? So sometimes it's good to just write, even though, you know, we call them quote unquote negative, to write them down, just to see them.
Yeah.
What are each of us struggling with, and can we each give each other like a few little tidbits, nuggets of wisdom? Yeah.
Don't all raise your hand at once.
I think being kind to myself is something, you know, really, like the stories we play in our heads. Like, I was looking at, even, I don't even want to say my ex-husband, because his name's Josh. Josh, when I were talking about, he's like, I love you didn't do anything wrong. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm a horrible lady who left you with the dog, but I have the dog. It's just like this crazy story I've made up. And I'm like, why am I doing that to myself? But I'm doing that in all aspects of my life. But
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you love about yourself?
I love that why? I don't know, this usually isn't that hard for me, but
What do you treasure? What do you admire?
I like that I like to help people.
You treasure.
I treasure that I enjoy helping other people.
Beautiful. How do you do that?
Volunteering and going to Tijuana to like a orphanage place and hanging out with the kids.
What else do you treasure about yourself?
That I'm like putting one foot in front of the other after like my whole life feels like it fell apart.
Huge. And lastly, what do you most admire about yourself?
Oh god. I don't know. That I easily forgive people, that I don't hold grudges.
Massive.
Thank you. This feels like a therapy session for me. I'm like, thank you guys for holding the space for me. Yeah.
What if every day when you brushed your teeth, you just looked in the mirror and you said, man, I really treasure my sense of service. And that's how you started your day, just having a positive conversation with yourself.
I love that. I would love to do that. I'm going to do that.
Okay, good.
And I'm going to journal.
Yeah, that was so powerful. I just connect to that so much because, you know, when I moved here, I mean, I had such a big culture shock. So self-love wasn't something that I had. You know, I was depressed when I was a kid. You know, I attempted suicide. I mean, it was something, I didn't know how to love myself. You know, it was really, really difficult. And I think in that journey coming out like to the other side, and now thinking, God, how was that possible? I think what for me really helped was, just learning like to really take care of my heart and my mind. Like, as if it's awareness that I'm not those things, that I'm first and foremost spirit, you know, and when I meditate to the fact that I'm good, you know, and I'm enough and I'm safe and, you know, I'm spirit, then I sort of see it as like, what am I going to feed into my brain this time? And, you know, and so I started to write all this stuff down. And what I started to do was like all the negative stuff, I would say it's not useful. And then every time it popped up, it was like a game. Like I had to come up with one positive thing to counter that I believed. And then at night, I sit with that one comment, as foreign as it felt. Like when I used to say I love myself, I was like, ugh, I love myself, you know? But over time, when I started to find it, when I kept saying it to myself at night and I closed my eyes, it just became me. It went from being foreign, you know, to then like, yeah, like really owning it. And I guess that sort of helped me get through, you know, that period, you know, to really like love myself in a way like that I honor and not make compromises. So I don't know, but that's mine. Saved me.
Anyone else struggling with something?
I feel like I'm struggling, but I'm facing it. So it doesn't really feel like a struggle, just because I'm practicing surrendering, you know? So mine was loving my child self. That was like loving the little girl inside of me. I think like she's very emotional and very vocal and very artistic and very me. She's just me. And somewhere in childhood, I felt like she wasn't enough when she's always been enough. And I actually am able to see my child self through my 5-year-olds. So when I look at her and I'm like, oh, this is where I needed a little bit more love, and this is where I probably should have been told this way. So raising her actually helps heal me. And I'm seeing, I can see the age where I started to question myself and question my power. And yeah, it's the little girl inside of me that just like wants to be loved. And I think the beginning, I think where I started to love her is when I decided to separate from my partner. You know, same thing, great guy, tried his best to heal me, but it's not his journey. It's not his journey. And I would blame him for a lot of things, but it was the surface stuff. It wasn't like the root of it, you know? So now that I'm dancing with my 8-year-old self, it feels good. I feel successful and scared and excited all at one time. Every day I'm like, what the fuck are we about to do today? Like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but
So that's the
whatever.
mindset shift, is that you're just open to anything.
Yeah, and every day I have to remind myself, just because for so many years it's been this program, you know, just like mentally telling myself. So it's really just being aware and activating different like muscle memory, you know, or just like brain memory, just trying to like reprogram myself. But I was just like, I woke up one day and was like, this isn't really working for me anymore. Like, this is kind of stupid. I actually don't believe in that. I actually don't want to do that. And then when I started to speak my truth and I guess be resistant is when people would get upset. But I always wanted to please people. I was like, oh, I don't want to piss anybody off. But now I'm like, yeah, but if you don't piss people off and you try to bend so much for other people, then what happens to you? Oh, now I'm not loving myself. Right. You know? So it was just like this trickle down. And I was like, yeah, no, we can't do that anymore. That's out. Come on. Yeah. So
Was there a moment where you're like, I have got to take a stand for myself?
yeah, when I separated from their dad, it was just like, that was the thing, is because I didn't grow up with my mom and dad in house, and I am starting to realize that that didn't really matter as much as society tells us that matters. I feel like as long as there's love in the home, I think it's okay, because the way that we're framing it for my children is like, mommy is doing what makes her happy and daddy is doing what makes him happy, and we come together and we're one happy family. And that doesn't mean that we failed at anything. We're just doing what makes us happy as individuals, and that's okay. So and I think my mom has a lot to do with that influence, you know? But I don't know where I was going with this. Just so much fucking information.
No,
Yeah.
that's so amazing.
There's so much reconditioning that's happening right now.
And why is it that a relationship is only successful if it's until death do you part?
Yes.
You brought 2 beautiful children into this
I'm
world.
like, this isn't enough. Look at my stomach and my body. This isn't enough for you. I'm like, damn it, I'm doing it. Yeah. But just allowing myself, and like you said, like loving yourself. I didn't realize how much I didn't really I love the adult version of me, but I didn't love the child version of me. And I'm like, but the childhood version is the best version of myself, you know? So just really going back in time and like really loving on that girl. I'm like, you're tight. Whoever told you that you're not, they suck. Yeah, so yeah.
Speaking of child, something that I've been struggling with is forgiving my father. And he left when I was 21, and he told me he was leaving my mom before he told my mom, because we were best friends. And so it wasn't just losing a dad, it was like losing your best friend, losing your hero, losing the person that, you know, half brought you into this world. And the reason I'm really struggling with it is because I haven't been in a relationship in 7 years. And so I look at women that allow themselves to be loved, and I'm like, oh my God, that is so courageous. Because to me, love equals loss and attachment equals pain. And I've gotten to a place where I've been single for so long that there's this like happiness homeostasis. Like, I know how to be good on my own. I'm not open to the potential storm that could come through my life and uproot everything that I have built stable. And yet I recognize that the entire point of life is love. And so right now what I'm really struggling with is, can I have a healthy relationship with a man if I have not fully forgiven my father? And man, I have done plant medicine, therapy, journal, like you name it. I've actually sat down with him for a very painful 3-hour coffee where it was just like brutal, because you recognize that, yes, this is the man that raised me, but he's at a different level of consciousness. Like, he is so attached to his suffering that he's not willing to just say, life is short, I love you, let's be friends. You don't have to be my daughter. I don't have to be your father in the traditional way. And so I'm going to Atlanta soon over break, and there is a part of me that is really struggling to just try one more time. But every time that I have reached out, it has left just such an avalanche of pain that then it takes so much to rebuild from that. And so it's like, how do we make ourselves open and vulnerable to that kind of growth in the pursuit of forgiveness? Because my inner child misses my dad. Like, I love him so much, and yet he chose to walk away from me and my sisters. And so there's this part that I can't understand how a father could do that. And that also makes me question any man that I date. Are you gonna stick around? Because if the man that birthed me is capable of walking out on me, how can I expect any man to be there and show up for me and my kids? And so I froze my eggs when I was 28, and I think subconsciously I did that so that I always could do me and didn't need a man. So yeah, it's a lot, but that's what I'm struggling with, so I welcome.
I feel like, I think that you allowing love into your life could actually help you heal the relationship with your father. And I think I had kind of a similar thing with my dad, slightly less intense, but also best friend. He's an alcoholic, a lot of struggle. And Josh is such a good man that he helped me heal and see that men can be so solid. And then now my relationship is so much better with my dad because we like got through that together. So I think really by letting someone in, it could really help.
I agree with that. Yeah, I feel like I always say there's only so much healing you can do on your own. Like, I really feel like that's what relationship is having that mirror and that person to really move through those things with. And like, my struggle at the moment is opening myself back up to dating. I've also been single for quite a while, 6 years, I think. Yeah. And I've only been in one relationship. I like came out as gay, fell into this 3-year relationship. We got engaged. It was very toxic and abusive, and I didn't know when I was in it, but I like lost myself completely. It was really scary. It was a really scary time for me, and so that's the only association I have with relationships at the moment. And so I've done so much work on myself. My life has completely shifted a 180 since that time. So now it's I'm struggling to step back into dating. I have dated, but nothing's turned serious, and I've kind of always been relieved by that because I'm like, there's such a comfort for being just alone and going to my place, my own home, and like knowing I won't be hot and bothered, you know, like I have control. But I think my next like round of big growth is going to have to happen in a relationship. And I know that I've even, as much healing work as I've done, that the stuff from my past relationship is still gonna come up in my next relationship, and that's okay. But I also like, and I think this is important to share too, something I've been shameful of for a long time. I have an anxiety disorder that comes into play when I date, and so that's also holds me back, because when I don't date, then I don't have to like face that anxiety disorder. And I mean, it is like absolutely horrendous.
I have horrible anxiety too. Yeah. I turn into like a raging bitch because I'm just having. But I had to identify like I'm having a panic attack. Like this is an anxiety attack. I'm not a bitch. This is anxiety. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think.
And do you share that vulnerably with the person you're dating? Like, hey, I have this pattern, and I need you to show up for me in this way when you see these symptoms.
Yeah, I have.
You have.
Yeah, but you know, then it just doesn't work out. But and I know that they're like, she's too much. But I know that with the right person, obviously, she will be the most accepting. But so
100%.
like I'll go on a date and I'll be like, oh, it's not right. Yes. And then I'll like stop dating for months.
Like,
and,
it's a relief.
It's a relief.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How often has anyone here been told or felt that they are too much?
All the time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
of course. We're women.
I don't get that sensation from men. I really.
Oh, fuck no. No, fucking no. Yeah, they don't care. It's been so easy for them for so long that now it's like the Me Too movement. They're like, can I even talk to a girl? It's like, and just don't be a creepy weirdo and it'll be fine. But anyway, sorry, that's separate. But yeah.
So when someone says to you, you're too much, like I had an ex-boyfriend who was like, oh, it's always the Vika show.
Oh.
It's like,
You're damn right. You're right. Glad you know.
So you caught on, I see.
but how do we take that too muchness and do exactly what you just did? Like, I'm owning it. Thank goodness I'm too much.
Like not let it be a bad thing.
Yeah.
I just fight for myself.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that for a long time. I would just be like, oh, okay, maybe I'm too much, and internalize. But now that I'm fighting back, oh, honey, I am like, and I'm not even doing anything bad. I'm just standing up for myself. Yeah. Like, I'm not cussing at you. I'm not throwing anything at you. But it's like really rattling you that I'm choosing myself. Sorry. You know. Yeah.
And the right person will just love you, every bit of you, perfectly exactly how you are. And I am like so much, and the right person just loves you, you know? And
Also, I wonder about this because I recently went on a date with a guy and he was like, I love when you talk, you are so smart. And I was like, child, I need you to be there too. Like, I need someone who meets me. And so I don't believe that your partner can be A+ and stimulate you for the next 50 years sexually, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. But what are the non-negotiables? Like when you're choosing a partner, because you guys have a whole lot of experience between the 5 of us, what are like the 3 qualities that they must embody? Oh my gosh.
Like compassion. Absolutely must. You know, like compassion it's interesting because like life starts at compassion, right? Love starts, everything. Like, you know, I just think about it. When someone has compassion in them, they can actually extend beyond themselves, you know, to another person, meet them at that level and feel their emotion like as if it was their own, you know, and when there's that sort of, you know, love and that deep bonding moment, you know, between like heart to heart, like that's when we start to see like action taking place, right? Like, because I have compassion for you, like I don't want you to feel that pain because I feel that suffering. So essentially, like, you know, in the seed of compassion, like love is born. So if they don't have that, then I can't imagine that they would be a completely loving being, because that compassion, whether it's for others or for ourselves, is like that water, you know, that like sustains like everything else. And so if they don't have compassion, I can't date them.
I'll piggyback off of that as well.
That's a great one.
That's like the first thing I look at whenever I'm dating somebody is how they treat others. And I mean, it's like everybody that we're around or how they talk about people. Because I'm a huge lover of humanity, and I mean like every single person. And I've always been that way, but it's like a practice of mine that grows more and more over time. And so I could never be with somebody that like, it's always the server, right? You can tell a lot about
I know.
Yeah, so that's
especially
a
if you ever
huge
were
one
a
for
waitress.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially
I
for waitress.
was,
I'm like,
I was a waitress.
gotta go.
Oh, they can forget everything. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine.
For me, it's generosity of spirit. Like on a first date, if you don't share your food or offer to share your drink, I'm like, we're not gonna get along. Like I come from a big Ukrainian family, and I need to know that what's mine is yours. Like this whole tit for tat thing. I had an ex-boyfriend who refused to pay half of Trader Joe's groceries, and I was like, I do all the cooking. And he's like, I'll just eat Subway every night. I was like, oh, I'm not marrying you.
What? Ew. On so many
So
levels.
for me, for me, generosity of spirit, compassion is a really good one. What else are some qualities, especially you two, because you've been in relationships?
Mine is listening. Like, actually, I don't want to say listening. I need you to hear me, because listening is different. Like, you can listen to someone's tone, but I feel like a lot of men seem to like in one ear out the other, and I'm like, no, I need you to like cover this one and just let it marinate. Yeah, because especially because I felt at such a young age that my voice wasn't important, you know, and I felt in my relationship that my voice wasn't important, and a lot of my relationships, and I'm like, now I'm realizing, but I've actually been recently identifying like, what's a deal breaker for you? What does that look like? Because I would just let people do whatever.
So what the thing you need most and the deal breaker? I like that kind of polarity. Like if compassion is the thing you need most, what is the deal breaker? The antithesis?
Narcissism.
Narcissism. Okay.
Yeah,
and for you?
That's narcissism is a big one. Yeah. For me, just because of my history, it usually a big one for me is like the partying. The need for substances to cover up something. I run. The way that I'm like, woo!
Which is actually like shocking, I find, because my best friend was a lesbian, and so I was very part of that community.
Yeah.
Shockingly large in the lesbian community.
What, the partying?
The partying.
Oh God, yeah. It's really hard to.
She really struggled with that, finding somebody
Yeah.
that wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and I do have like a whole theory with the LGBTQ community, and in general in LA, everybody's like trying to figure themselves out and lost, and like coming here to think that they're just escaping, but really they need to heal, but then they use the substances to escape. Yeah. But it's a big thing in the LGBTQ community, and that was also a reason why, I think one of you asked me earlier, why I started the LGBTQ class, and it was to have a space where my community could gather that didn't have to do with substance abuse, or that, you know, was a healthier space, a quiet space. The clubs, I'm like, that it was,
And what's some of the feedback that you've had, because we have a couple of minutes before we break.
A lot of them have had the same feeling. I always tell them, I'm like, oh, I created this for me, not for you. Like, this is what I wanted, so I created it. But everybody who comes feels the same, you know, that they've been looking for something that's more rooted in growth and community and connection, like true connection. And it's been really, of a lot of them, it's just like their safe haven. It's like they tell me they look forward to it every week, and it's their family, it's their community, you know. And I just think more spaces like that for all marginalized communities are so important in the process of healing, creating that safe space for the separate, marginalized communities, so we can safely and comfortably with ourselves walk through this world.
Wow, I'm just like so in love with all of you, and I was, and all of a sudden I'm just thinking, are there men like this?
Girl, this is a woman thing.
That's how you gotta be. I will tell you there are.
There definitely are.
There definitely are.
It's a little different though.
I just realized
and I don't think it's not as close as women.
Like, I feel like we're God.
I agree with
I
that.
definitely feel like women are God.
Note to marinate on. I love what she said about active listening.
Can I say one thing before we, just to end on that thing, because I feel like it's important about just the thing in relationships, whatever. For me, like sex is really important, and I have realized how as a woman, I am receiving a lot of shame over that being something that is a deal breaker in a relationship for me. And sexual compatibility, which I didn't even realize was a thing really, and it really is, like, and that doesn't mean anyone, it's just like you're different, you don't match up. But the amount of people who have been like, you cannot leave a relationship over sex, like you're insane, is so crazy. And I swear to you, a man would never hear that. They'd be like, oh, she doesn't fuck you? Yeah, get out. When's the last time you got a blowjob? Like, you know,
that's true.
Are you
That's
kidding
true.
me? Like,
That's so true.
But it's like, eat my pussy. Like, you know, I just think like it doesn't go both ways. And again, like for us, it was just like, oh, we're not compatible. That's cool. We're okay with that. We see that we would probably have better sex with other people. But for other people, and I think a lot of times it comes because maybe they're not having the best sex lives, and so they're like, you can't do that because that means I should. But I just think like,
because when you're brave enough to break away, it threatens people who stay.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, not having shame around sex as a woman.
Thank you for joining us for what I believe is one of the most thought-provoking and true, raw, honest conversations that 5 women who walked in as relative strangers could have. And I am really excited. I feel like this is the start of something wonderful. Go back to your communities, have these curious conversations, and get really real with each other, because it's been super, super healing. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you.